in all honesty. I mean, it's not the greatest conversation that we are having today. And so if you don't know what transpired on Tuesday, the residents of Mannenberg had to endure 48 hours of gang violence and shootout between two rival gangs, which means 148 bullets has been shared within 2 days. Now, to chat more about it, JP Smith is going to really kind of just break it down to help us understand what the city is doing and also a few things that they are going to be implementing to try their best to curb the gang violence that is ongoing in Mannenberg. And then also, I mean, this weekend, even out in Seawinds, Lavendale, Steenberg, innocent lives that had been taken due to gang violence as well. JP Smith, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon.
Let's get into this one. So just in terms of what had transpired, has SAPS, or rather law enforcement officials, managed to arrest anyone in connection to the shootings that had taken place on Tuesday in Mannenberg?
So SAPS will need to tell you whether any of the arrests are directly linked and whether they intend to prosecute any of these people, because remember that investigative power rests with SAPS, as does the power to control the National Prosecuting Authority, the Department of Justice, and the Department of Correctional Services. Mm-hmm. So I know people, in the minds of most people, this is much of a muchness. The city SAPS, same thing. It isn't. The city is tasked with traffic and bylaw enforcement. National government is tasked with crime prevention. And so these investigative matters lie squarely within the domain of the South African police. Yeah. But in the absence of effective action, more and more, there's pressure on the city to step into these spaces, but keep in mind that that pressure is aggressively resisted by SAPS. I have, for instance, last week when the violence was not being effectively deterred by policing actions, asked MEC Regan Allen to convene an urgent meeting with SAPS, which he did. We put to SAPS an offer of a joint operations center starting in Mannenberg. We would throw in all of our electronic surveillance tools, the ISR, our CCTV cameras, drones, body cams, and otherwise. We would help them effect an effective blockade. And we would set up, add our information management and investigative resources. So that offer was made. It was supportively received in that meeting. We continue to follow up with SAPS to try and get that process going because it is a huge urgency for us, but the lead agency must take lead on it. Okay. However, we have increased our enforcement resources in the meantime in these hotspots. We've added staff on overtime. We've brought staff in from other areas. And between Monday and Sunday, this past Sunday now, law enforcement and others yesterday, law enforcement officers recovered 2 illegal firearms in Mannenberg and made 2 arrests. Metro Police, on their side, recovered 3 firearms in Mannenberg, as well as a replica pistol, and they arrested 4 suspects. One of the recovered firearms was stolen in Hartepeespoort Dam in February. And then one of our LEAP officers arrested 2 suspects last week, and these were later linked to a murder in the area. Whether it is to the specific murders, any of the specific murders that went in those previous days, I can't tell you confidently until SAPS advises of that. But with our additional Metro Police and Gang and Drug Task Team, Metro Police Gang and Drug Task Team presence in the area, we are getting now constant results. So 9 o'clock this morning, Metro Police officers were doing patrols, and in Sable Road, they arrested a 20-year-old suspect for the possession of a prohibited firearm and ammunition. They recovered this 9mm pistol with a serial number filed off and 13 rounds of ammunition. And then just after midnight earlier this morning, they responded to ShotSpotter, our gunfire detection system, and they arrested another 51-year-old man for possession of a replica firearm and 3 packets of tip. And the reason that the media know how many gunshots there have been is because of the technology the city has deployed, which helps us respond to those gunshots immediately. And as you see from what I've shared with you, that is in some cases then also leading to us being able to recover firearms.
And speaking about some of that technology as well, just a few moments ago, you even touched on ShotStopper, which is something that you have also just even on your own social media platforms, you've been speaking about it, you've been advocating for it. How effective has ShotStopper been for you and also for law enforcement?
I mean, so as with all technologies, Shot Spotter is in and of itself not going to solve crime. It's not called Shot Stopper. It's called Shot Spotter. It is a tool like CCTV. So CCTV looks at crime. It allows your operator to see the movements of people and incidents around the cameras. But you can, for instance, have a shooting incident directly behind a camera and the operator would not be aware of it. If people are not running towards or away from something so that the operator knows to swivel the camera at that moment and look in that direction, he wouldn't know. So this gunfire recognition technology or ballistic detection technology does is it listens for gunshots, alerts the enforcement staff on the ground, including the SAPS members and AGU, where those gunshots have gone off, because we share the technology with SAPS, and that allows them to respond within a couple of meters of accuracy to the triangulated location of that gunshot. And that increases your recovery rate of firearms by around 5%, 5 times, which means we are getting more firearms off the street. And in that way, LEAP alone in the last 3 years have recovered about 550 firearms. In the last 2 years with traffic law enforcement and Metro Police together, that's just over 700 firearms we've recovered. So we are really punching well above our weight range as the city to try and mitigate this. But of course, there's two problems with that. One is that when we arrest somebody, we have to hand them over to SAPS. So we are dependent on a competent criminal investigation. And because your detectives are so massively overloaded, and national government is not adding any resources to those detectives and increasing the number of detectives. Your detectives are sitting with caseloads of over 220 to 280 dockets. I've even heard of a detective with 600 dockets. That means that those cases are not being effectively investigated and most often are not resulting in a conviction. So your criminals, your gang murders have a conviction rate of below 2%, and that is an absolute crisis. And then secondly is the ongoing abundant availability of firearms. And that has to do in part with the fact that firearms were sold by a criminal syndicate within SAPS, for which a particular senior officer, Prince Lure, in SAPS took the fall. He served 1/8 of his sentence, and there was then released on early release. And he is convicted for selling of just under 3,000 firearms. But in the research around this, it is estimated that some 9,000 firearms disappeared from that national firearms armory, and that the gangsters are still sitting with many of these. So as fast as we're taking guns off the street, they have access to other illegal firearms that unfortunately, by and large, should by now have been destroyed by the National Armory.
Listen, I think at the end of the day, and we've just ran out of time, but I think at the end of the day, JP Smith, we are talking about despite the politics, and I know politics always complicates everything, even for us as citizens and for us as community members, but at the end of the day, working together, when law enforcement comes together, SAPS, law enforcement, Metro Police, when the powers that be comes together, surely there is a great sense of accomplishment that can be achieved, and also safety rises to an even higher level, especially when we're looking at areas such as your Hanover Park, your Mannenberg, and like I've mentioned earlier this weekend, seeing innocent people, kids being gunned down in 3-4 o'clock in the morning out in Seawinds and Lavendale areas as well. And so hopefully in the coming months, and hopefully after May, depending on what elections are looking like, hopefully we can come to this resolution and have the different agencies work together, because obviously we need this when it comes to our communities and even when it comes to our kids.
So I wouldn't call it politics. I know it can sound like politics because it's coming from the mouth of a politician. But explaining who has what role in the criminal justice system is unfortunately not politics. That's just a job. That's me walking into your studio and asking you, telling my car's broken down outside in your parking lot. Can you repair it for me? And you saying, I'm a DJ, I'm a radio presenter, I'm not a car mechanic. And me saying, no, well, you're here now, and can you quit the politics and just do it? So it's not politics when it is important for me to explain that certain people have certain legal and constitutional roles, and I can't replace that role, much as I would like to. So we argue for devolution of power, for those powers to be given to provincial and local levels so we can do these things. We can do investigations and crime intelligence. and otherwise. But in the meantime, we do have to work with and through SAPS. We did make the offer to them last week to take this to another level, to significantly increase the level of response to this current spate of gang violence. And I'm confident that they will respond to that to allow us to help the residents. In the meantime, as you can see, there is no shortage of effective action by Metro Police. Numerous firearms now in the last week, 9 in fact, between Metro Police and law enforcement from today, from now as we speak until last week, Monday, that have been recovered. So our officers are really trying to do the best we can. It is important, though, that those we arrest are prosecuted and convicted. Otherwise, they'll be back on the street doing what they've been doing these last weeks.
Yeah. JP Smith, thank you for your time. Have a lovely afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That is JP Smith.